I'm going to start this video by asking a question. Is it normal for rugby media where you are to go in and slag off the great players in your country? If you're in Ireland or France, New Zealand, South Africa, anywhere not England, is this what you see? Does the media just go after the best players you have? Or is it uniquely English? My suspicion is it is very much uniquely English. And that is one element of this that I'd like to talk about today. And I don't think it's something I just want to talk about, the move or potential move of Owen Farrell to Racing 92 in Paris. I think it's much more interesting to look at what that maybe means for the balance of power in club rugby versus international rugby between the domestic leagues themselves, because the tectonic plates in rugby are shifting all of the time. But yeah, just to go back to the question that I just asked you, and before I go into all those elements, let me just take you back to the end of November when Owen Farrell decided he was going to take a step back from international rugby, and his head coach at Saracens, Mark McCall, pointed out, after lots of people had said this is likely due to the negativity on social media surrounding Owen Farrell and the online abuse and all the rest of it. And Mark McCall, his Saracens head coach, said, yeah, fine, online abuse is terrible, but never forget, it's the mainstream media which is where this starts. That's what he said. And I think it was a really smart point. He said that it's in the mainstream media, so in the newspapers, television, radio, all the rest of it, the mainstream outlets is where this narrative and this perception of Owen Farrell is built. And what do you know? Earlier today, I watched Leicester beat Saracens in a really entertaining game in the English Premiership. And the headline from The Guardian reads, Owen Farrell blunders help Leicester edge to victory against Saracens. Owen Farrell blunders, the first three words in that headline. Now, I don't know. Maybe I watched a totally different game to the people that wrote that headline. Or maybe they just wanted clickbait and they just wanted people to click on the article and they don't really care about rugby at all. But the game I saw, Owen Farrell played really well. And his Saracens team were beaten by Leicester because they absolutely pumped Saracens at scrum time. So ultimately, an interception pass had very, very little bearing on the result compared to a number of other factors, most notably Leicester's fantastic power game. And that being the case, the mainstream media outlet here had two choices. They could celebrate Leicester's brilliant scrummaging and power play, or they could just fabricate something about one of England's very best ever players. And they decided to go with the latter. And I saw this headline and thought, if Owen Farrell is leaving to go to France, is it any wonder? Absolutely, I despair sometimes. So yeah, as I say, that's a question. Is that sort of thing something that you see elsewhere in the world? Because it feels like, to me, it just happens in England. And it just happens, I don't know. It's the whole, is it a tall poppy syndrome thing? Like, I just don't get it. And hey, look, if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you'll know I'm a big Owen Farrell fan. The Owen Farrell fans don't come more passionate than this one. But I'd love to know your comments just on all of the things I talk about in this video, not just that. And you can get stuck in down below, give the video a thumbs up, and if you get value from the channel, consider hitting subscribe. I would really, really appreciate that. But I despair at the stick that this guy gets, given that he is one of England's all-time record appearance holders, 113 caps to his name. England's all-time record point scorer, the second highest point scorer in the whole sport of rugby union, behind Dan Carter only. 6 Premiership titles, 3 European titles, European Player of the Year, 3 Lions tours, a World Cup silver and bronze medal. And yeah, the guy just gets a load of stick. He's a talent that comes around very, very rarely. And I will miss him if he never plays for England again, and I'll miss him if he leaves the Gallagher Premiership. But on that, and this is where it gets interesting, the power dynamics in the domestic leagues and in the pull of international rugby and club rugby and the salaries that can be afforded, it's quite interesting times in rugby at the minute. It feels a little bit like Game of Thrones, like you're not sure where the power is going to land. And there's a lot of twists and turns you feel. But one thing you can say is that the gravitational pull of the top 14 is getting bigger. I mean, I remember doing my GCSE physics, and the bigger the mass, the bigger the gravitational pull. And the top 14 is just got a lot of momentum and feels like it's got a lot of weight behind it now, a lot of mass. And it just seems to be drawing things towards it. And Owen Farrell may just be the latest in a long line of England players, but players from other nations move into France because it is in a really good place. Well supported, great viewing figures on the TV deal, brilliant stadiums, fantastically competitive league, a full professional structure that goes down 4 leagues now, and as a consequence it seems to be spiralling up into a very, very good place. When you look around the world, Japan has a load of money, but that's corporate money and it doesn't quite have the quality or competitiveness or interest that France does. The Premiership last season, just coming off the back of a season where it lost 3 professional clubs, between them about 400 years of history, just gone like that. Awful, absolutely awful situation due to financial mismanagement and poor planning, and I mean, just a mess. And whilst all the players that were at these 3 clubs kind of has bolstered the other teams a little bit, I think there's still a lot of financial hardship and tough decisions and a rocky road ahead. And there's not a lot of faith that the people that are running the sport in England are actually going to be able to lead us to the sunny uplands. I hope I'm wrong on that, but doesn't look great. Meanwhile, what have we got? The URC, that's really strengthened and it looks like it's on a good trajectory, albeit Wales not in a great spot, Scotland limited resources, Italy the same, but the Irish provinces, the South African teams, high quality. And if it can ignite the interest in South Africa, that along with the massive support in Ireland, you've got the foundations there for something that could grow and could become better. There's a lot of talk of potential British and Irish leagues in the future. All you can say is the URC has definitely got a lot better in the last few years. The top 14 though, it's a way on its own. It's a great product for all the reasons I've already mentioned. So competitive. There's a relegation threat, real jeopardy. And the competitiveness, just look at the fact that Montpellier, they were the champions only a couple of years ago. And now they're facing potentially going out of the division, being relegated. I mean, it's just a wonderful competition. And as I say, it just seems to be spiralling upwards into a really good place. A bigger than ever TV deal that dwarfs any other TV deal in domestic club rugby. And it's attracting some of the greats. And potentially the great Sia Khaleesi could be playing alongside the great Owen Farrell if he does decide to go to Racing 92, which is, as I record this, still an if, because the rumour came out yesterday, was it? And or sort of late on Thursday night. And yeah, January the 1st, agents can officially start talking to players who may be out of contract. I'm sure a lot of conversations go on before that point, but Racing came out with a statement basically saying that they deny any agreement has been reached with Owen Farrell. Crucially though, Racing 92 do not deny that they're trying to sign Owen Farrell. You have to look at what they don't say as well as what they do say. So it's not a flat out denial. So what I take from this is that Owen Farrell is mulling over a decision. Now, Saracens, his club, who he's been at since he was a kid, they will have offered him a contract. I would suspect, judging by everything we're hearing, Racing 92 have offered him a contract, and it's just a case of which one he is going to sign or announce that he has signed. Watch this space. But Mark McCall said he's trying to keep him. He said that having Owen Farrell in your team is something that any team would want. He said he wasn't going to talk about the specific rumour, but he said he would understand it if one player was at one club for a long period of time and then wanted to go and have a new experience. And that comment, if you read between the lines, looks like this could well be happening. And Owen Farrell has been there since he was a kid. Great Barnet in that shot. And do you know what? I've got mixed emotions because he deserves to go and get a big payday, deserves to go and have a great experience. He's got a young family, but his kids aren't quite old enough that they're at school yet. Now would be quite a good time to go and experience a different culture, go and try something different. He could be reunited with his old coach. It was Stuart Lancaster that gave him his England debut back in 2012, I think, I want to say. And they could be reunited. So there's a bit of history there. And it would just be a great story. I'd also love to hear Owen Farrell's northern accent pronouncing French. Bonjour, je m'appelle Owen, je suis un joueur de rugby pour Racing. What is it? 92. Yeah, I want to hear that, please. But on the flip side, I don't want to see it because that would end his chances of playing for England, which brings me to the next point. Why is it that different countries have different rules for who can play for their national team? Should that be changed now? Is this the tipping point that might nudge England over the edge to actually change what they do because the balance of power is shifting so much? I kind of hope it does a little bit because, as I say, it's not just Owen Farrell. You've got Lewis Ludlam's going to be going to Toulon, Jack Willis already at Toulouse, Henry Arundel at Racing, Jack Knoll at La Rochelle, and there will be more. There will be more. And there was a really interesting article recently. I don't know if you saw it. Stephen Kitsoff was speaking after his move to Ulster, where he's now gone. Great move for him. Great move for Ulster. And great, who got a good win against Leinster with Kitsoff anchor in the scrum there. Last weekend, wasn't it? And Stephen Kitsoff said that South Africa encouraged their players to go and play abroad. And I mean, part of that is they've got so much depth, ridiculous levels of talent that they can stock, particularly the packs of every domestic league. You look around the top 14, the Premiership in England and Japan, and it's just stacked with South Africans. And they've got so much depth. So Stephen Kitsoff said something really interesting. He said that he felt if he'd have stayed in South Africa that he would have been blocking the pathway for someone else. And I mean, Stephen Kitsoff deserves to go and earn the money that a double World Cup winning prop should earn. Absolutely right. And experience something new in Belfast. So he deserves all that. But he's absolutely right, you know. If he'd have stayed where he was, then some young prop who could be the next Stephen Kitsoff is not getting a spot in his side, and that's kind of where I think there's a balance. And Stephen Kitsoff would be a model for what England should do with their national team selection. So Stephen Kitsoff, Owen Farrell, very similar in terms of experience, caps, all the rest of it. Both been to 2 World Cups, Stephen Kitsoff's, or more than that, but both been to the last 2 World Cups and played against each other. Stephen Kitsoff got the better of those 2 encounters. Owen Farrell's got himself a silver and a bronze medal, but you take the point. Stephen Kitsoff's got nothing to prove to South African rugby, and he's put the time in with the provinces in South Africa, with the teams there. And he goes off with their blessing, and it's not going to cost him his national team place. It should be like that for England players, I feel. Henry Arundel, who's also at Racing 92, I think him choosing to go to Racing means I'm okay with him not playing for England. But Owen Farrell, who's got that many caps under his belt, has spent 15 years playing for Saracens, deserves to go off and not lose his international place if that's what he wants to do. So here's what I would do. I would maybe formalise something like South Africa kind of do on an informal basis. I would maybe say, because I do understand the reason why the rule is in place that England players have to play in England, because if you didn't have that rule, the Premiership would all of a sudden get much weaker. More and more players would just go and chase the money. And so on the one hand, it feels like English players are being held hostage a little bit, being kept within England because they're not being paid as much as they could get elsewhere. And that's where Ireland, who also you have to play for Ireland, if to play for Ireland, you have to play in Ireland. But the difference is there's a bit of central money that means the players can get paid what they're worth. The government gives them really amazing tax breaks, so they get paid in that way as well. So they're not really losing out financially as a result of it. And New Zealand is another country where you have to play in your country in order to play for your country, but they have a really good view towards these sabbaticals. Go off to Japan, have a little stint there for a few months, earn yourselves bags of gold, which you can then bring back to South Africa and still come and play for New Zealand, to New Zealand, and still come and play for New Zealand. So there's got to be a balance that can be struck. And I reckon, how about, just plucking this off the top of my head, how about if you've got, maybe it's not even about international caps, because we've seen Wales players get stuck with that when they had the 50 cap rule or whatever. And maybe it's not even about caps. Maybe it's about you have to put the time in the Premiership before you can then go off. 7 seasons in the Premiership, and then you can go off and you're still eligible to play for England. I'd like to see something like that, because then you keep the players for a significant period of time, but when they're at their biggest like earning potential, like Stephen Kitsoff is now, like Maro Itoje would be now, for example, when you can really go out there and earn your corn, and you've put the time in with your domestic league, then you go off and it doesn't cost you your international place. Does that make sense? I think there's some sense in that. I'd love to know what you think about that. So get stuck in the comments. Give the video a thumbs up. That really helps spread the word, because it's just me and I appreciate you watching the channel. If you get value from it, please consider hitting subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.